All right, welcome to our deep dive into You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay.
Oh, a classic.
It is, it is. We had so many requests to cover this one. So many people saying, hey, when are you going to cover Louise Hay? So here we are.
Yeah, it's a really impactful book for so many people.
Yeah, it's one of those books that I think even if you haven't read it, you've probably heard of it. You know, the basic idea that our thoughts can shape our reality.
Right, and she goes way beyond just like manifesting material things into the realm of like physical and emotional healing.
Yeah, like ever had that nagging back pain and wondered, is this all in my head? Well, Louise Hay might have something to say about that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She really gets into those deeper connections between our thoughts, our beliefs, and our overall well-being.
So right off the bat, Hay kind of lays out some core philosophies.
Mhm.
She's big on personal responsibility, like we're in the driver's seat of our lives.
Yeah, that's a key theme throughout the book. It's empowering, but also can be a little confronting for some people.
Right. It's like, okay, no more blaming other people or circumstances. It's on me.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's the power of our thoughts. Hay is adamant that what we think shapes our future.
And she stresses the importance of the present moment. Like that's where the real power lies.
Right, not dwelling on the past, not worrying about the future, but really focusing on what we're thinking and feeling right now.
So it's all about taking ownership of our thoughts and recognizing their impact.
Absolutely. And this all ties into another one of Hay's big ideas, this almost universal feeling of, I'm not good enough.
Oh, yeah, that one hits home for a lot of people, I think. Like we're constantly comparing ourselves, coming up short.
And from a psychological perspective, it often stems from those ingrained patterns of self-criticism, sometimes even self-sabotage.
Like we get in our own way without even realizing it.
Exactly. And Hay calls it out pretty directly. She uses the term self-hatred, which is a strong word.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But it kind of cuts through the noise, doesn't it? Makes you really pay attention.
It does. And it forces us to confront those negative beliefs we might be carrying around without even realizing it.
So how do we break free from those patterns? One of the things I find really fascinating about Hay's work is this idea that the universe is like a giant mirror, reflecting back whatever we believe.
Oh, yeah. That's a powerful concept. And it's not just about positive thinking. It's about recognizing that the universe will support any belief we choose,
Even the negative ones.
even the negative ones. So if we're constantly telling ourselves, I don't deserve love, or I'm not capable of success, guess what?
We're probably going to see evidence of that everywhere we look.
Exactly. She gives those examples of people who attract critical partners or struggle financially, not because they're destined for hardship, but because deep down they don't believe they deserve better.
And it can be such a vicious cycle, right? Like those negative experiences just reinforce the negative beliefs.
Absolutely. And it's important to distinguish here between conscious thoughts, the ones we're aware of, and what she calls habitual thoughts, those deeply ingrained patterns running in the background.
So, like, we might consciously want something, but our subconscious beliefs are actually working against us.
Exactly. Like, think about driving a car. Sometimes you're consciously navigating, other times you're just on autopilot, going through the motions. Our beliefs can work in a similar way.
That's a great analogy. So how do we start rewriting those subconscious scripts? Hay puts a huge emphasis on forgiveness. She argues that even when it feels impossible, even when we've been deeply hurt, willingness to forgive is the foundation of healing.
Right. And that includes forgiving ourselves, too, not just others.
Absolutely. It's like clearing out all the mental and emotional baggage that's weighing us down, making space for something new.
From a psychological perspective, this makes a lot of sense. Think of it like weeding a garden. You can keep trimming the tops of the weeds, but they'll just keep coming back.
Until you get to the root of the problem.
Exactly. Forgiveness, in Hay's view, is about addressing that root cause, not just treating the symptoms.
And she has this great anecdote about a client who regained perfect eyesight after years of struggling. But then she refused to believe it. She still acted as if she couldn't see.
Wow, that's powerful.
It really highlights how powerful our subconscious limitations can be. Even when presented with evidence to the contrary, we can cling to those old beliefs.
It's like a part of her couldn't accept this new reality because it contradicted everything she had come to believe about herself.
Exactly. So how do we uncover those hidden beliefs? Hay has this exercise called negative messages.
Oh yeah, this is a good one. It's about pinpointing those limiting beliefs we often absorb in childhood.
Like from our parents, teachers, even society as a whole, those messages that shape our self-perception, often without us even realizing it.
And it's not about blaming our parents or anyone else. It's about understanding the origins of our beliefs so we can start to shift them.
It's about shining a light on those dusty corners of our minds and seeing what's really been lurking there.
Exactly. And once we've identified those negative messages, we can start to challenge them, replace them with something more empowering.
And that's where Hay's work gets really practical. She offers a whole toolbox of techniques for building self-approval.
Things like affirmations, visualizations, and of course, her famous mirror work.
Yeah, that one's a classic, standing in front of the mirror and saying, I approve of myself. It sounds simple, but it could be surprisingly challenging.
Especially when we're so used to that inner critic, that voice telling us we're not good enough, not thin enough, not successful enough.
It can be really hard to drown that voice out. But Hay argues that pushing through that resistance is key.
And she has this story about a client who overeats to avoid facing negative thoughts.
Oh, wow.
It illustrates how we often turn to unhealthy coping mechanisms rather than confronting our inner demons.
So it's about cultivating that self-compassion, being gentler with ourselves, recognizing that we're all works in progress.
From a psychological perspective, this is huge. We tend to be incredibly hard on ourselves, setting these unrealistic standards.
And then beating ourselves up when we inevitably fall short.
Exactly. Hay's approach is about shifting that inner dialogue, becoming our own best friend instead of our own worst enemy.
It's about rewiring those ingrained thought patterns, creating a more supportive inner environment.
Right, and this is where things get even more interesting. Hay actually connects these mental patterns to physical manifestations.
Oh yeah, this is the part that people really latch onto. She has that whole list of ailments and their probable mental causes.
Like headaches, back pain, even cancer.
Yeah, she links cancer to deeply held resentment, which is a pretty bold statement.
It is, and it's important to emphasize that this isn't about self-diagnosis or replacing medical advice.
Right, it's not about saying, oh, I have a headache, therefore I must be repressing anger.
Exactly. But it does encourage us to consider the mind-body connection, to ask ourselves, could there be more to this than meets the eye?
It's about exploring the possibility that our physical symptoms might be reflecting deeper emotional patterns.
Not about blame, but about taking a more holistic view of our well-being.
Right, recognizing that we're not just minds or bodies, but a complex interplay of both.
And Hay's approach is really about empowering us to take a more active role in our own healing.
Not just being passive recipients of whatever life throws our way, but actively participating in our own well-being.
Exactly. And she offers a range of practical exercises and techniques for doing just that.
Like that willingness to release exercise, where you confront that inner resistance to change.
Oh yeah, that one's good. It's like we might intellectually understand the need to let go of a bad habit, but emotionally we're clinging to it for dear life.
It's like we're getting some sort of payoff, even if it's ultimately harmful. Like staying in a job you hate because it feels familiar and safe.
Right, even though it's making you miserable. And Hay suggests, starting with the affirmation, I am willing to release the need for, and then filling in the blank with whatever that issue is.
So smoking, overeating, negativity, whatever's got you stuck.
Exactly. And she also emphasizes the physical aspect of releasing. Sometimes it's not just about mental work, it's about allowing those emotions trapped in the body to surface and be expressed.
So things like having a good cry, yelling into a pillow, going for a run to blow off steam.
Exactly. Finding healthy outlets for those pent-up emotions rather than suppressing them.
Which can often manifest in physical symptoms.
Right. And she even talks about the importance of acknowledging and expressing anger, which can be a tricky one.
Especially for people on a spiritual path, there can be this tendency to try to bypass anger, like it's a negative emotion we shouldn't feel.
And she has this great analogy about anger being like steam building up in a pressure cooker. If you don't release it safely, it's going to explode eventually.
So it's about finding healthy ways to express those feelings rather than bottling them up.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's forgiveness, which we touched on earlier. Hay has this really powerful forgiveness exercise where you visualize showering the person you need to forgive with good things and then doing the same for yourself.
It's not about condoning their actions. It's about releasing the grip that resentment and anger have on you.
It's like a mental detox, letting go of all that bitterness that's weighing you down.
And she also talks about the power of self-approval, those positive affirmations, especially the mirror exercise.
Some people find affirmations a little cheesy, but there's something to be said for consciously choosing positive self-talk, especially when our minds are so prone to negativity.
It's like our default setting is to focus on what's wrong, what we're lacking, what we need to fix.
Right. So affirmations are a way to interrupt those patterns and introduce something more positive.
It's about rewiring those neural pathways, creating new grooves in our thinking.
And Hay's work really encourages this more holistic approach to healing. It's not just about mental and emotional well-being, but also physical health.
She mentions things like nutrition, exercise, bodywork therapies,
It's about finding what works for you and creating a lifestyle that supports your overall well-being.
and then, of course, there's that famous list of probable mental patterns behind physical ailments.
That long list covering everything from headaches to cancer.
It's definitely the part of her work that gets the most attention, and it's important to reiterate that it's not meant to be taken as medical advice.
Right, it's not a diagnostic tool.
But it does raise some interesting questions about the mind-body connection.
Like she links cancer to deep-seated resentment, for instance.
Yeah, and there's actually a growing body of research in psychoneuroimmunology that suggests a link between chronic stress, negative emotions, and a weakened immune system,
So the idea is that when we're constantly harboring those negative emotions, it creates a state of chronic stress that can suppress our immune function.
making us more susceptible to disease.
Exactly. And while the research on specific emotions like resentment and cancer is still in its early stages, there's definitely a compelling argument for exploring the role of emotional well-being in overall health.
It's not about blaming ourselves for getting sick, but about recognizing the potential impact of our thoughts and emotions.
And Hay's work is really about empowering us to take a more active role in our well-being, to not just be passive recipients of whatever life throws our way, but to actively participate in our own healing process.
And she doesn't shy away from those deeper issues of self-worth, especially when it comes to sexuality and relationships.
Right. She points out that so many of us were raised with these negative beliefs around our bodies and sexuality.
And those beliefs can lead to a whole host of problems, from low self-esteem to intimacy issues.
It's like all that societal shame and taboo gets internalized, and it can manifest in these physical and emotional blocks.
And Hay believes that self-love and acceptance are key to healing those issues.
It's about challenging those negative beliefs and embracing a more positive and accepting view of ourselves, both physically and emotionally.
And this all ties back to Hay's own story, her healing journey from cancer, which really involved a deep dive into forgiveness, self-love, and changing her thought patterns.
Her experience, while extraordinary, really highlights the potential for transformation when we're willing to do that inner work.
It's not just about reading a book, it's about taking action, applying those principles to your own life.
And Hay offers a whole range of practical tools and techniques, things like meditation, visualization, journaling, and of course, her signature affirmations.
It's about being open, curious, and willing to experiment to find what works best for you.
And to remember that healing is a process, not a destination. There will be ups and downs, breakthroughs, and setbacks along the way.
But as Hay's own story demonstrates, the power to change our lives lies within us.
Now, shifting gears a bit, let's talk about another powerful concept from the book. The idea that every experience is a success.
Ooh, that's a good one. I like that. It really challenges that traditional notion of failure.
It does. It invites us to view every experience, even the ones we might label as mistakes or setbacks, as opportunities for learning and growth.
Hay believes that we always attract experiences that mirror our inner thoughts and beliefs, even the ones we might not be consciously choosing.
So instead of beating ourselves up for perceived failures, she suggests asking ourselves, what can I learn from this?
It's about shifting our perspective from blame and self-criticism to curiosity and self-compassion.
Exactly. And she provides some practical tips for cultivating this success mindset.
Things like focusing on our strengths, setting realistic goals, celebrating our achievements, no matter how small.
It's about recognizing that every step we take, even the missteps, are part of our journey and can ultimately lead us closer to where we want to be.
Now let's talk about Hay's perspective on prosperity, which she views as a state of mind rather than just a measure of wealth.
Yeah, she really challenges those limiting beliefs that many of us hold around money.
Like the idea that it's scarce, that we have to work ourselves to the bone to deserve it.
Right. And she suggests replacing those beliefs with more empowering ones.
Like the affirmation, I am open and receptive to the abundance of the universe.
It's about recognizing that abundance is all around us, not just in the form of money, but in the beauty of nature, the love of our families and friends, the countless blessings in our lives.
It's about focusing on what we have rather than what we lack, cultivating that sense of gratitude.
And she talks about the importance of giving back to others, sharing our blessings with the world.
Creating a cycle of abundance, not just for ourselves, but for everyone around us.
Now, for our listeners who might be skeptical about attracting wealth through affirmations and positive thinking,
Yeah, I can imagine some people rolling their eyes at that.
It's important to remember that Hay's approach isn't about sitting back and expecting money to magically fall into your lap.
It's not about passive wishing. It's about aligning your thoughts and actions with a spirit of generosity and abundance.
Exactly. It's about shifting our mindset and creating a more positive and receptive energy around money.
And there's actually a growing body of research in positive psychology that supports the idea that our thoughts and beliefs can influence our behavior and ultimately our outcomes.
So it's not just wishful thinking, there's a real psychological basis for this.
Hayes' approach to prosperity is about so much more than just financial wealth.
It's about creating a life that feels rich and meaningful on all levels.
She believes that when we align our thoughts and actions with our deepest values and desires, we open ourselves up to receiving all the good that life has to offer.
And she reminds us that true prosperity is about much more than material possessions.
It's about living a life filled with love, joy, purpose, and abundance in all areas.
Now, as we wrap up this part of our deep dive into You Can Heal Your Life, let's shift our focus to Louise Hay's personal story.
Which is really quite a testament to the power of her work.
Starting from a place of immense hardship, she transformed her own life and went on to inspire millions of others to do the same.
Her work really resonated with people even before the whole self-help movement gained widespread popularity.
She was a true pioneer in this field.
And what's remarkable is how her message continues to resonate across decades and cultures.
It speaks to the universality of these core human needs: to heal, to feel worthy, to create a life of abundance and meaning.
And she presented these ideas in a way that's both accessible and insightful.
It's not about complicated theories or jargon, but about practical tools and empowering beliefs that anyone can apply.
And she was always evolving, always incorporating new ideas and practices into her work.
From her early focus on affirmations to her later exploration of holistic practices like yoga and nutrition, she demonstrated a lifelong commitment to growth and expansion.
And she didn't shy away from those tougher topics, like the impact of childhood experiences and societal conditioning on our beliefs and behaviors.
She recognized that true healing often requires addressing those deeper wounds and releasing the patterns that no longer serve us.
And she did all of this with a spirit of love, compassion, and unwavering belief in the human potential for transformation.
Hay's legacy is a testament to the power of self-belief and the transformative potential that lies within each of us.
Her work invites us to step into our power, embrace our worthiness, and create a life that reflects the best of who we truly are.
So before we move on to the final part of our deep dive, I'm curious, what are your initial thoughts on Hay's work and her personal journey? What resonates with you the most?
Yeah, for me, it's that emphasis on self-love. It's so easy to get caught up in self-criticism, but Hay really drives home the importance of accepting ourselves, flaws, and all. Totally. It's like she gives you permission to be kind to yourself.
Exactly. And that's such a radical act in a world that's constantly telling us we need to be better, do more, achieve more.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about Hay's core principles. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty. How do we actually apply this stuff in our lives?
Well, she offers a whole toolbox of techniques: affirmations, visualizations, journaling, and of course, her famous mirror work.
Right, that daily practice of looking in the mirror and saying, I love you, I approve of you.
It sounds simple, but it can be really powerful.
Yeah, I've tried it. It's way harder than it seems.
It is, because it forces you to confront those deep-seated beliefs about yourself, those negative thoughts that might be lurking beneath the surface.
And it's not about denying those thoughts. It's about acknowledging them and then choosing to replace them with something more positive.
Exactly. It's like retraining your mind to focus on what you want rather than what you don't want.
And Hay also talks about the importance of letting go of the past. Not just forgiving others, but also forgiving ourselves.
Yeah, that's a big one. We can carry so much guilt and shame from our past experiences.
And those old wounds can really hold us back from experiencing joy and fulfillment in the present.
So Hay offers some really powerful techniques for releasing those past hurts and moving forward with a clean slate.
Like that exercise where you write down everything you need to forgive yourself for and then burn the paper.
It's symbolic, but it can be really cathartic.
It's like you're releasing all that negative energy, making space for something new.
And she also talks about the importance of gratitude, focusing on what we have rather than what we lack.
Right, because it's so easy to get caught up in that scarcity mindset, always wanting more, never feeling satisfied.
And Hay argues that gratitude is the antidote to scarcity. When we focus on what we're grateful for, we open ourselves up to receiving more abundance in our lives.
It's like shifting our energy from lack to abundance.
Exactly. And she also talks about the importance of giving back, sharing our blessings with others.
Because true abundance isn't just about accumulating more stuff for ourselves. It's about creating a world where everyone has enough.
And that can start with small acts of kindness, volunteering our time, donating to causes we care about.
It's about recognizing that we're all interconnected and that our actions have a ripple effect on the world around us.
Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about one of the most controversial aspects of Hay's work. Her list of probable mental patterns behind physical ailments.
Yeah, this is the part that people either love or hate.
It's definitely thought-provoking, but it's important to approach it with a grain of salt.
Right, it's not meant to be taken as medical advice.
Exactly. But it does encourage us to consider the mind-body connection, to explore the possibility that our physical symptoms might be reflecting deeper emotional patterns.
Like she links cancer to deep-seated resentment, for example.
And while the research on the specific connection between emotions and disease is still in its early stages, there's definitely a growing body of evidence suggesting that chronic stress and negative emotions can suppress our immune system.
Making us more vulnerable to illness.
Exactly. So while we don't want to blame ourselves for getting sick, it's worth considering the role that our thoughts and emotions might be playing.
It's about taking a more holistic view of health, recognizing that we're not just bodies, but also minds and spirits.
And Hay's work is really about empowering us to become active participants in our own healing process.
So it's not about passively accepting whatever health challenges come our way. It's about exploring all the possible contributing factors, including our own thoughts and beliefs.
And she emphasizes that true healing often involves addressing those deeper emotional wounds, releasing those patterns that no longer serve us.
And sometimes that means seeking professional help, whether it's therapy, counseling, or body work.
It's about finding what works for you and creating a support system that helps you thrive.
Now, one of the things I appreciate about Hay's work is that she doesn't shy away from talking about those taboo subjects, like sexuality and relationships.
Right. She acknowledges that so many of us have been conditioned with negative beliefs around those areas.
Like shame, guilt, fear.
And those beliefs can really sabotage our ability to experience intimacy and pleasure.
So Hay encourages us to challenge those beliefs, to reclaim our sexuality, to embrace our bodies and our desires.
It's about creating a more positive and accepting relationship with ourselves, which then translates into healthier relationships with others.
And she offers some really practical advice for cultivating self-love and intimacy.
Things like practicing mindful self-pleasure, communicating our needs to our partners, and setting healthy boundaries.
It's about creating a more fulfilling and joyful experience of sexuality, both solo and with a partner.
Now, I'd love to hear from our listeners. What are your thoughts on Hay's work so far? What resonates with you? What challenges you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I've been seeing a lot of comments about her list of mental patterns and ailments.
Yeah, that always sparks a lot of discussion. Some people find it really insightful, others are more skeptical.
I think the key is to remember that it's not meant to be a diagnostic tool.
Right, it's not about self-diagnosing or blaming ourselves for getting sick.
It's more about inviting us to explore the mind-body connection, to consider the possibility that our thoughts and emotions could be playing a role in our overall well-being.
And to maybe even ask ourselves, is there something going on emotionally that might be contributing to this physical symptom?
Exactly. And even if we don't buy into every single connection she makes, I think it's valuable to at least be open to that possibility.
Right. Because sometimes just bringing awareness to those potential connections can be a powerful first step towards healing.
And Hay always emphasizes that healing is a journey, not a destination.
Yeah, it's not like you read a book and poof, all your problems are solved.
It takes time, it takes effort, and it often involves facing some uncomfortable truths about ourselves.
But the rewards can be so worth it.
Absolutely. And speaking of rewards, let's talk about Hay's perspective on prosperity.
Which, as we discussed earlier, is about so much more than just money.
Right. It's about abundance in all areas of our lives. Love, health, happiness, fulfillment.
And Hay believes that we can create that abundance by shifting our mindset, by releasing those limiting beliefs that hold us back.
Like the belief that we're not good enough or that we don't deserve to have what we want.
And she offers some really practical tools for doing that.
Things like affirmations, visualizations, gratitude practices.
It's about consciously choosing thoughts and beliefs that support our well-being and our goals.
And it's also about taking action, aligning our actions with our desires.
Because you can't just sit around visualizing $1 million and expect it to magically appear in your bank account.
Right. You have to take some practical steps towards your goals.
But Hay argues that when we combine those practical steps with a positive mindset, we create a powerful synergy that can help us manifest our dreams.
And she also emphasizes the importance of giving back, sharing our abundance with others.
Because true prosperity isn't just about accumulating more stuff for ourselves. It's about creating a world where everyone has enough.
And that can start with small acts of kindness, volunteering our time, donating to causes we care about.
It's about recognizing that we're all interconnected and that our actions have a ripple effect on the world around us. So as we wrap up our deep dive into You Can Heal Your Life, what are your final thoughts on Hay's work? What are you taking away from this exploration?
I think what stands out for me most is the emphasis on self-love and acceptance.
Yeah, that's a recurring theme throughout the book.
And it's so important because when we learn to love and accept ourselves, we create a foundation for healing in all areas of our lives.
Like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly. We have to fill ourselves up with love and compassion first, and then we can share that with others.
And Hay's work is really a guidebook for doing just that.
It's filled with practical tools and empowering beliefs that can help us transform our lives from the inside out.
And even though she passed away a few years ago, her message continues to resonate with people all over the world.
Because it speaks to those universal human needs. To heal, to feel worthy, to create a life of abundance and meaning.
And I think that's a beautiful legacy to leave behind.
Absolutely. And if our listeners are feeling inspired to delve deeper into Hay's work, I highly recommend picking up a copy of You Can Heal Your Life.
It's a book that can truly change your life if you're open to it. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
Did you get any of that?